Hi and welcome to Aranyok, a semi-regular thoughts and discussion where we'll talk about anything that's going on around the league. It's everything I have found interesting, whether it's looking at particular games, doing some particular game breakdowns of key performances, it's looking at some of the key takeaways, and we'll be looking at further diving into everything that happened by providing that extra context, giving some stats and analysis. And so far it's been a few days with the NBA season starting this week, and we already have so much to talk about. There's already so much that happened since the opening night, with the Celtics almost hitting a career a NBA record 29 threes. We've had new stars making their debuts, and there's so much more. So today we'll be going through how the Celtics attacked Karl-Anthony Towns, Anthony Edwards' decision making and how the Lakers defended him, Julius Randle's defense, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander slicing through everyone, and how Shai Holmgren had him performance versus the Nuggets. But first, here are some takeaways and thoughts from some of the games that I've watched, some games that stood out the most to me. We'll start off with the opening night, where it was the Knicks and Celtics, and this was one of the better games despite it being a blowout, despite the Celtics not making it a competition at all right from the start. And I like the way they did it. They attacked the Knicks how they wanted to do it, and the Knicks had no answer for it. It was just like they came out of winning a championship, they came out with a statement. Whereas the Knicks just showed that there is still a lot of work needed to iron out on both ends of the floor. It's the offense without Brunson, it's mostly the defense. It's mostly how will we deal with both Brunson and Towns getting attacked consistently in pick and rolls, and what else could you do to minimize that? When it comes to the Lakers and the Wolves, I really liked a lot what I saw from the Lakers. They couldn't hit anything from the three, but they still didn't make that game. And that was the best thing. Like, they didn't have the shooting and they still looked more dominant than the Wolves. They had more answers for whatever the Wolves did, and it was mostly the defense and how they stopped the Wolves doing anything they wanted. A couple of things that have caught my eye was Anthony Davis being used more in the corner. That started off with a couple of possessions of him being in a weak side corner, and then on the strong side where it resulted in a Rui Hachimura 3, or it resulted in a dunk where Rudy had more ground to cover to rotate to Rui. And that was interesting to see how many more possessions we'll be seeing with Davis off around the corner instead. Dalton Knecht had a solid rookie debut with his off-ball play. There were 3 plays in a row basically with him setting the backswing for LeBron and coming into a handoff, whether it was for a 3 or flowing into another pick and roll that opened up a roll. So that was good from him. He had also a good transition play. I really like his performance so far. But a lot came with the defense, and they just felt huge right away with Davis, Rui, and LeBron just being in the paint. And that was one of the main reasons why I saw their defense against Edwards and against any other actions. They were just swarming the paint immediately. They were rotating early, and they were just making the Wolves' offense just stagnant because of it. A lot of that was also on the Wolves just being the Wolves with some of the decision making. I didn't really like Randle's start with the Wolves. And Edwards was Edwards. He had some of those possessions where he held the ball far too long. He started off poorly when he was getting attacked by aggressive coverage, where he was just picking up the ball so many times. That did get better throughout the game, but it still was concerning at the start, and it still was one of the bigger reasons why they couldn't put up any points to start on. The Sixers were without Joel Embiid and Paul George, and there was pretty much nothing else you can take away from that. Maxey was tasked with so much then. There's only so much you can do when you're the only option on offense. So that also in itself isn't a great start to the season for the Sixers, with 2 of your best players already injured and missing a week. The Bucks, though, they looked good, and although they had one concern I already had in my preview, that already showed up when Brook Lopez went to the bench. Their defense kind of fell off, and it was because of the rim protection. Brook was already elite at doing it. So in this very first game, everyone was challenging him, and he was cleaning everything up. He was cleaning everyone's messes up, And without him on the court, there was no one else that could clean up the mess the way he did. And that's still going to be a worry. So we'll be curious how they continue to do that, because that was a whole season issue last year. But offensively, they looked great. Giannis was Giannis. There was nothing that they could have done to stop him. One little thing that caught my eye was him being used a lot more on the elbow as a hub of some sort, with the whole side being cleared for him, and he just attacked it. Whatever the defense gave him, he just made the right decision. Dame, he had a great game, especially as a shooter. And if he can bounce back as a three-point shooter the way he normally is, then that will already make the Bucks so much more dangerous. If he can have a bounce back season off the dribble, then there's nothing else you can do, because he was showing already in his first game that he can still easily and every time beat someone off the dribble consistently. And if you give him that space to take those shots, and he's a high 30s, low 40s kind of guy instead of a mid 30s, then that will change everything. The Magic, I really like what I saw from them in game 1 against the Heat, and they may be more legit than I thought. The defense is still legit, and that is going to get better with more reps. KCP will have that kind of impact. He was already showing just how none of the guards on the Heat could have done anything against him. But it was the offense that kind of showed up. They already pushed pace. They were a slow, grinded kind of game in a mud type of team last year. So if they can continue to just push the pace, get those easy points the way they had in this game, if they could up some of the the offensive rating to like around average, then this season could be a really good for them. And one of the reasons why was Banchero just showing so much more than he did last year with just attacking the Heat the way he has. I enjoyed the Spurs versus Mavericks game. Chris Paul made his debut, and his presence was already felt with some of the reads that he was making. I really liked the fit with him and Wembanyama and everyone else, because even at his age, Paul is still Paul. He's still someone that can just make those kind of reads consistently. Some of the passes that he made was just quick snap decisions, and at times the player didn't even realise that he was going to get the pass. On the other end, Luka was Luka at the end. I didn't like how him and the Mavericks kind of just felt they were settling for those threes. Luka in particular was going for those step backs a lot early on, and it felt like settling. But once those step backs actually go in, it's so demoralising. But my favourite game of the season so far was the Nuggets Thunder. Seeing Jokic play is always fun, and with the way the Nuggets the Thunder were defending him, where it was a double almost every single time, he was just making the right reads, and some of the passes that he makes is just so fun to watch. But it was the Thunder that was the best one. How Holmgren just had a performance of the year so far, and Shea just doing everything he usually does. There was no one that could stay in front of him. So far, through 12 games that I watched, it's great to have the NBA season back, and it's already so many good things that are showing up. Now let's get to some breakdowns that focus on specific things from this week that caught my eye. The first one, it's the Celtics going at Karl-Anthony Towns. That was the main takeaway from that game, where that's how they generated so many easy threes, because they were just going at him, and that opened up so much, whether it was for the ball handler that attacked him, or later on in the game where they were showing hard with him, that just opened up so many practice shots for everyone else. And that's the thing I don't get about the conversation around the Celtics putting up so many threes, because it's them putting up threes because of the defense is giving them that. Not in a way that the defense is forcing them into those shots, but there's nothing else that they can do. No team will want to allow teams to just have wide open looks after wide open looks. That's basically a practice shots for shooters that are around 40 to 45% on open looks. No defense wants that, and yet they just constantly get those looks because they're so dangerous offensively. And there's no other team that comes close to the kind of talent they have. They have so many guys at all times that can dribble and shoot at a high clip. And in specific matchups like the Knicks, then it makes it so much easier to attack, and then everything just flows seamlessly. they didn't have to work for most of those frees. It was just a simple action, make a right read after another right read, and you end up with a corner three that's wide open. So if you can generate a wide open look for a player that's likely to shoot 40 to 45%, then why would you even look to pass it on to try to get a better look when that's probably the best look you could possibly get? A wide open corner three for Derek White, Jrue Holiday. It's going to be better than anything else you could do. You could teams will want to get shots at the rim. That is the easiest look that you could possibly get with, say, wide open layup, but they are harder to come by. So if you can generate the second best open shot, which is a wide open three from the corner, then that's what the defense will. That's what the offense will look to get to do. So let's just see how the Celtics just attacked Towns throughout the game. The Celtics attacked Towns mostly in a pick and roll, and to start the game it was mostly in a deep drop. For some reason that's what the coverage was for the Knicks, but then they adjusted to have him show in blitz, and that's when the Celtics just got a good look after good look. Most of the looks after Towns was showing was wide open after wide open looks. And that's how easy it is to attack a player that puts two on the ball. Because after that, it's Tatum making a right read, and then it's cutting, it's ball movement, it's everything else that puts the defense in rotations, make the defense scrambles, and then it's literally getting practice shots after practice shots. In the first possession of the game, it was a simple pick and roll that got Tatum making a deep drop and a wide open pull-up. Second possession was the same thing, a wide open pull-up. They targeted him off ball where it was Horford setting a pin down for Brown. He curls, Cat was sucking off Horford, and it was a wide open three, easy. And then once they started showing, that just put two on the ball. Pritchard gets a wide open three. Another one where Brown almost had a show. He was able to almost turn a corner, and it was a skip, but it turned out to be a charge as well. But again, it was so easy once they started showing two on the ball. It was just, after that, it was just making a right read and then moving the ball. And that was it. There was one possession where they got two wide open corner looks because of just Tatum putting that two on the ball. There was White having to cut that, open up so many more threes. And when the whole team is just so spaced out, there's so much ground to cover for everyone else. It's just one pick and roll, but then everyone else has to work if you put the defense in rotation. If you put the defense in rotation and then Brunson has to run from one corner to the other, it's just pressuring the defense so much more. And there's nothing else that you can do outside of just hope that they miss a wide open look. And that was basically it. And I don't think that's where the Celtics settled on their threes, because they generated their threes in a way that just pressured the defense, and it was what the defense gave up, that they had to give up, and there was nothing else that they could do. On the other end, for the Celtics, the defense also stood out, and it was just how they were treating Josh Hart. They not only helped off of him, as most teams do, they also put either Luke Cornett or Al Horford on him. They started Jrue Holiday on Karl-Anthony Towns, and that was interesting. They trusted Jrue enough to put him on Towns, so knowing that he won't get beat enough. He won't get easily blown by, he won't get easily overpowered to just give up a layup after layup or a foul. So if they can trust him and then have Horford or Cornett be the roamer, be the help side defender to just deter shots or be a rim protector, that makes Hart's play offensively just more difficult to have on the court. They tried to have him as a screener, they tried to have him as a cutter, and it still resulted in just defense helping off and stopping some of those many key possessions. A lot of it was on isolations where it deterred their drive completely. There was a Brunson drive where he saw Cornett off a strong corner and then just went away from it. He didn't look to attack, he just made a pass. There was one where Luke Cornett was in the paint and he was stunting, he was digging, and that just forced a kick, and that opened up a Josh Hart free, which you live with. Then there was a possession with Al Horford being a Roma, being on the weak side help. Karl-Anthony Towns looks to attack, and then he comes in with a block. So if there's one player that is constantly around the perimeter, just not getting guarded, that's going to cause issues. Because a lot of the times they just did not care what Hart was doing. He was setting screens, he was cutting, he was moving around, and they just didn't care. And that's still also on the Knicks not being able to make them pay. If someone's getting ignored to that extent, then they should be having a much easier job at generating looks. There was one time where did draw the defense and it ended in a contested OG Anunoby shot. That's not the look that you would want when you have that advantage. So that's definitely something that the Knicks will have to figure out, how to use Hart in a better way that gets more open threes. But that's still a issue that they had last year. So it will be interesting to see how they continue to do that. One of the worst player debuts for a new team was Julius Randle, and particularly on the defensive end. That was probably one of the worst defenses I've seen from a player, where he had so many lapses that just made me scratch my head. I'm not even a Wolves fan, and some of the errors that he was making just annoyed me watching it. A lot of it was just multiple things. It was losing guys on cuts. It was ball watching, not tagging rollers. It was losing Rui Hachimura. Even when he did look to help, it was weak help. It was being late. It was not throwing his body at the guy that did anything. It was also not boxing out. So there was two possessions with Anthony Davis just walking for a rebound next to him. He lost him, no effort, I don't think I've seen him box out. And then there was that one play with him getting killed by LeBron back cut that just left him in dust. I'm not sure if it's just if that's just a thing that's a opening night kind of game, but the effort needs to be so much better. And the fact that it's so many different areas that he was losing his guy. It was ball watching, he was not tagging, it was not he was losing the cutters, the help wasn't good. So many areas that the defense just wasn't at a average level. On the other end, the Wolves offense could also have been so much better, and a lot of it was the Lakers defense being that good and how they treated Anthony Edwards. There were two things that stood out, and it was how he approached the pick and roll first, and then how he approached the isolation and how the Lakers defended him in isolation. When it comes to his pick and roll, they started off being an aggressive defense. It was Davis just lunging at him, showing, and at first the process wasn't good. It was settling for a three. It was picking up the dribble early. It was not attacking and moving the recovering defender. It was just killing the possession, killing the advantage way too early for no reason. Then he adjusted by realizing that's the coverage that it was coming. So that's when you see him splitting the defense. That's when you see him turning the corner on Davis instead of picking up the dribble. There was that one possession where he continued to dribble. He didn't kill that advantage when he sees Davis coming. And that's when he was able to attack a Austin Reeves that was recovering. And that's the kind of decision making that he has to improve on from the start. He can't take almost a quarter of pick and rolls to realize what he needs to do. In the second half, he was seeing a lot more of drop and more conservative defense, with Davis also switching, which will lead us to isolations. But again, the process and some of the decision making on some of the pull-ups could have been a lot better. When it comes to the defense, it was more so about the Lakers defense than anything else. You can see how the defense was so early in the paint. You have Rui just preloading that one side, and Edwards is holding the ball. It was a lot of that. It was a lot of any defenders being in the paint, preloading. He was seeing help and multiple defenders in gaps so many times. Even if he took someone off the dribble on that initial advantage, he will see 3 or 4 bodies next to them in the paint. At times he will go up strong, go up for the contested layup, but many of the times it's a pull-up, it's a contested shot, or a bad decision. And that's also on the Wolves just needing to figure out how to counter that, because you can't just rely on isolation buckets that is contested off pull-ups. There are so many times where everyone is just ball watching with him just dribbling when there is defenders, when our defenders just sitting at the elbow. That should be a cut. That should be something going on elsewhere. You can't just be everyone else sitting and watching Edwards try to cook, because that makes his life no any easier. He'll look to attack and then there's defenders there. So it's either resetting the offense or it's taking a bad shot. Contrast that with someone like Shea, who that was one of the best games I've seen of him slicing through everyone. Maybe I wasn't watching enough Shea, but this game against the Nuggets, where they have Aaron Gordon, they have guys that are at least plus defenders, have some size, have some athleticism, and he was just picking everyone apart. There was no one that could do anything. He was just picking everyone apart. No one could stay in front. Even if the defense looked to recover, he just got them on a fake. Gordon fouled him, Stroller fouled him on the fakes. He was getting everyone on the pump fakes if the defense was able to recover. But most of the time, it was him attacking and then not even realising he's already at the hoop. He did see help in the same way that Edwards did, and he still somehow found his way through it. With Edwards, there was all of his driving gaps weren't available. But then it feels like Shea, he just makes those gaps available again. He may be seeing multiple defenders in his way, but he will somehow sliver through it. He will attack quicker. He will just change. There was that one move against, I think it was Aaron Gordon in the third quarter, where he hit him so many times with a hesitation, with a different change of speed, different direction. Even if the defense was recovering, showing help, he was just quicker and more decisive in how he attacked him. And that was one of the best ways they generated offense, because they did also help. That forced them to pass it up, and that just opened up a lot more. It opened up a shooter to Isaiah Joe. It opened up a kick to Chet that allowed him to attack off the catch, which we'll get to that in a minute. And a lot of the offense is so much easier when you have an offensive player that could take anyone off the dribble every single time. I don't think there was a possession that he just couldn't do anything. And that makes life so much easier for him and everyone else. But as good as Shea was in that game, it wasn't about him. It was about Holmgren, and he had himself a game as a finisher, self-creator, and a passer. I like his passing a lot when it comes to his decision making on the roll or when he was attacking. He had some great plays with him just attacking anyone that came to close out. He just attacked and made the right read, whether it was a shot or a kick or a dump off to a cutter. He looked smarter than before. Some of the drives he also had against, I think it was Michael Porter Jr., where he took him off the dribble to the rim. There were a few rolls had Nikola Jokic foul him. He was arguably the second best player on the team, on the court. He was spacing out. That gave Shea more room, and when he made that read to Chet, it was just beating a closeout, taking guys off the dribble, and that's what he can do. He can just take guys off the dribble, off the catch. He took guys off the dribble when it comes to just him doing it in transition, or he could just be a roller, a finisher that will just finish high efficient plays. That's everything for the first week-ish of the NBA season. It's only been around 3 days, and there's already been so much fun, so fun to watch. It's watching Bronny James have a moment with LeBron. It's seeing Steph play again. It's seeing Jokic dice up doubles. And it's only been 20 odd games, and it's only going to get better.